We are a creative animation visual effects studio. We work across films, games, brands, and experiential projects, lots of different things. We've been going 8 years. I co-founded it with my business partner Nick, and we've got a particular niche. And that niche is focused around bringing together story, design, and technology. And that fusion allows us to tell interesting stories about where we might be going in the future, but as much as about looking at the now and having to think about where we are now and is this really where we want to go. So in doing all of this, we're really looking at the emotion that comes through from technology, those kind of intangibles that we can't quite express in words. And we do that through a mechanism that's known as fictional user interfaces in films. So anytime you see a technology, a hologram, you know, when you're seeing James Bond hacking into MI5's database, it's all those sorts of ideas. And it's a moment in the film where they're using technology to express something about that world. I might just show you what we do. So there would be sound, but there isn't. And I don't know if my laptop speakers are going to be good enough for this, so I'm kind of just showing some of the world. But we've been working with Marvel for years, so Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers. We've had a great relationship with Ridley Scott, working with him on Prometheus and The Martian. So it's been amazing. More recently, Pacific Rim and Ready Player One with Steven Spielberg. So we've learned from some amazing storytellers and learning how they can make it amazing, as if by magic. Maybe it was just the cable. Ghost in the Shell, obviously a vision of future Tokyo. So hopefully some films in there you'll recognise, and I just good. That laugh, positive. So what do these technologies represent? What do we read through them? So for me, you know, this is sinister. This is how I don't know what's behind this technology. It comes with a connotation. When I think about the idea of AI, we all have this fear, this concern that we don't really know what's going on behind the surface and what it could turn into. Is it going to take away our jobs? So it's just playing on all of these unknowns, really. But for me, as a kid growing up in the 80s, my first meeting with tech through storytelling was through this great film called War Games, where a hacker kid gets blamed for setting off the third nuclear war, and it's a fun film. It really is, believe it or not. Although it might be a little bit close to home right now. For me, you know, looking at technology in some of the films, it comes through in charm. There's warmth there, there's personality. It's not all about being sinister and cold. When it has history and personality to it, it can have a completely different connection to us all. And we put romantic connections there that talk to a wider audience. So if you think about Han Solo wrestling with the Millennium Falcon, you know, and he's kicking it around and it's not quite working, we're okay with that. We're fine if it doesn't quite work. We know that there's a friction there. We know that there's something to get past. But it's that physicality and that touch point that we all connect with. So how do we make these films? How do we get involved in the technology on the movies, and how does that come through in the storytelling? Well, it all starts with the script, of course. For us, we're all trying to understand the meaning in those words. So all the creative teams on a movie, we're all picking through the different meanings, picking through the different layers, and trying to understand the director's vision for a movie. And we very quickly start concepting these up. So we work alongside the concept team, and they're drawing out their visions of what the architecture looks like, the vehicles, and we're trying to understand how technology becomes a part of that storytelling. Now, I'm told by a lot of fans on blogs that all SI interfaces are blue. So we try and work against that. So one of the the geniuses of Ridley Scott's brief and Prometheus was really to consider technology as an organic thing. It's a noise, it's a thing that we find patterns in, and it's seeing through those patterns and that organic movement and those dynamic systems that we really draw intelligence. So his brief was, don't forget about Iron Man, forget about Minority Report. I want you to be inspired by underwater sea life and let those systems inspire the technology that we represent in the film. Now, admittedly, that sci-fi interface is still blue, but there is, there's a different language going on. It is more organic. It talks around those themes of Geiger, of man and organic meets machine, and it's an interesting thing to present in a movie. And this is what I think all film directors are really looking at. They're making a statement on the now, or they're asking a question of where we're going, and it's a really interesting question to ask. And then we simulate the potential of where it might be going. And we do that through a lot of research. And when we look at how other people making films work, it's all about that depth of understanding. They live and breathe the material. They understand the history of costume making. They understand the weight of the fabric and how that might inhibit the actor. And it's really our role as using data and tech in films to fully research it, fully understand it, and then play that back through design. And that's how we do it. When we work on The Martian, this gentleman floating in the middle is Dave Lavery, he's head of Jet Propulsion Labs at NASA, and we would have weekly conversations with him to fully understand what on earth all these clever people at NASA do and how they use that data and technology. We do have to use beautiful imagery that come from Hubble telescopes, and we do need to add a layer of design. But the beauty of this is it's all actual NASA data. We're just adding a layer of design to help the filmmaker tell a story. And then we're helping the filmmaker understand what the different data means at different times to fully convey the complexity of the role of picking up Matt Damon off the surface of Mars. And it's not all about green screen, it is genuinely live. So you get things like this. So this is me walking around a film set with an iPhone, and it's all live graphics on set. It helps the actors immerse themselves in the environment. It helps the director understand how the data and the technology might be used to tell a story. And for the people that are shooting it, they're not imagining what green is going to fill in the gaps. We have it all there. So we believe in that, building technology for real and displaying it in front of the filmmakers. And that's what it goes down to, really. So we had the pleasure, I'll get into Bladerunner very quickly, because I know we're on a time limit. Denis was our client. We had Dennis Gassner, production designer, visualizing these worlds, and Roger Deakins, who picked up the Oscar for filming tool. So some amazing people to work with. And they came to us with 3 tonal, emotional words that we had to feed through everything. And that is scale. So this scale just creates isolation, and it really helps with the kind of the epicness of the world building and us immersing ourselves fully into it. It helps us believe that this really is a place that could be. We talk about power and the power struggle between humans and replicants, the power struggle between different layers in society, and also, obviously also the corporate power that comes through. And most importantly, from both of those, we talk about brutality. And we have to talk about brutality. It has to be intense because we need to shake up the audience and help them fully sit up, take notice, and engage with the film that they're watching. So it's how they're treating each other, but it's just the sheer effects emotionally that we find ourselves in because we've landed in this future. So again, we're working with beautiful concept design. They're thinking about making it all analog. They're aware of the tools that they're using, and they're trying to make everything as three-dimensional and as real as possible. So we work our technology designs into physical designs and make it as real as we can. And we really need to think about this idea of technology reset. So if electronic displays and electronic hardware got completely wiped out globally, what would that do to society? So lower levels of society would be hacking technology together and using optical display systems and finding other ways to record data. Maybe we would be using bioluminescence technology. It would have a history to it. It would be tactile. It would be analog. And that's when we started coming through with these types of designs. So when we're comparing DNA in the film, we're using glass plates, and they mechanically slide into place. And you just start to feel that tangibility of the movie and the attempt coming through. We got it wrong a lot of the time. We went too techie. The director wasn't responding to this. The director didn't really like this either. It was too luminous. It was too bright. It felt too CG. So we started stepping away from our tools and thinking about our process and questioning how we were doing this creatively. And in the end, instead of building it all out in CGI, we did clever tricks where we would slice through a melon and photograph it up close, and that would turn into a brain scan. So it's just really clever ways of really engaging with that material, and it was that process the director bought into. It was less about digital design, and it was more about selling the authenticity of an analog process that mixes in with digital. So a really beautiful scene in the film for us was the moment. Have you all seen the film?
Yes.
Good, because they discover that a replicant gives birth, and there's a barcode in a pelvis bone. That was kind of a key moment for us. And again, we got it a little bit wrong. The colours weren't quite getting there. It was too CGI again. And so in the end, we ended up scanning a pelvis bone three-dimensionally, projecting it, photographing it, reprocessing it. And just those layers of technology and those layers of process and that history that comes through in the visuals meant that we were being a lot more restrained and being more true to the vision of the film and tying it back to the original that was made in the 70s. Obviously, it's a dream come true working on Bladerunner because you get to work on flying cars, and who doesn't want to do that? So again, we're working into the designs. We're looking at the physical way that things are being made, and we're letting the design of the technology be informed by the physical world and the stories we want to tell. It's through the lens of the stories first, and thinking about the stories that we want to tell. It's coming from that perspective. So there's no steering wheels in the flying car, of course. So there is an autopilot, and we wanted some warm colours to come through because we wanted the replicants to feel more human than the humans. That was an important statement for the director to make. So with Wallace, who's a corporate powerhouse, we wanted him to feel quite cold. We wanted it to feel quite modernist, beautiful still, but there's danger in that beauty. And this is how the work looked.
I want to ask you some questions.
Checking in on an old serial number.
That's gonna be tough.
So all those graphics were live on the film set in front of all of the actors, and they would press buttons and ask questions and try and break it, which was really annoying. And they managed it a couple of times. But the important thing was it all felt truly analog, and it all felt like it connected to the history of the movies, and it all felt part of that world-building exercise. So we also get involved in the real world and have a real human connection through technology and design. So I thought I'd share some of our experiential projects. So we get involved in things like operas, where we're projecting artwork to sync in with the storytelling. We've worked with Dolby Cinemas, creating artistic projections throughout their cinemas across the US. This was a piece with Clarins telling the story of various different natural ingredients to protect the skin. BioSay is a new tech startup. I'll talk about this in a moment. This was an internal project. It was an ECG of the building, monitoring the data activity going on throughout the site. For London College of Fashion, we created an immersive technology piece. We've worked with many film directors to create VR experiences within movies, so you could imagine what it was like to drive the Batmobile. And more recently, we've been involved in the new Jaguar launch with the artist Dua Lipa. So at all times we're trying to use technology and design to really connect with people emotionally in some way. And this was a really interesting project. So working with the Gates Foundation, they were all about dealing with tropical diseases and a big story around treating those tropical diseases. So Bill Gates wanted to go up on stage, present to all of the investors in the project, thank them for all the great investment, explain the data behind that, what they'd actually achieved with that money, and then, look, this is what we could do if we could invest a little bit more. So it was very, very important to the Gates Foundation that the data was represented absolutely accurately. And we're talking about hundreds of millions of treatments, and those points needed to match. And we needed to make the data really organic and beautiful and engaging and pull the audience in and be seduced, but not be distracting from the main point of the data and the story coming through. So this is what we ended up creating. So I personally think that putting out stories, whether it's utopian or dystopian, from data and technology, and connecting with people in the right way, and just imagining and asking those questions is all very valuable. It's where our real interest is at, and it's an exciting time to be looking at that right now. Thank you.